This is Cruise Radio.
Now more than ever, you should consider trip insurance for any kind of trip you take, not just cruises. Get a free quote at tripinsurance.com.
Here we go.
Broadcasting from the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. This is Cruise Radio.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Doug Parker. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Cruise Radio. Very happy to have you here, my friend. A review of Carnival Horizon this week. A 6-night sailing over to the Western Caribbean from Port Miami. Kevin will join us here in just a little bit. But first, staff writer Richard Sims has cruise news. Hey, Richard.
Hey, Doug.
A food and beverage issue caused a second leg of a cruise to be canceled, dead in the tracks.
So imagine this. You get on board a ship and you're all set for a lovely week-long sailing, and they suddenly announce, sorry, but we can't feed you. And more importantly, we can't wet your whistle. That's kind of basically what happened to passengers on the Marella Discovery 2 who were all set for this Pride of Panama sailing when they were informed that the trip was being canceled. It sounds like they had a supply chain issue, which forced them to take this extreme measure. The ship had just completed a 7-day sailing, and as Mother Hubbard taught us all, sooner or later the cupboards are emptied. And, after basically every sailing, you have to restock. That's just, they don't have room on the ships for more than enough food for like a week-long sailing. Sometimes they even have to stock up in the middle of a trip. In this case, because of the supply chain issues, they weren't able to, so they actually had to cancel the trip. Some people were already on board. Some were making their way there. The cruise line did, of course, refund everybody's money and gave them some future cruise credit, even helped them make arrangements to go home. And for those who decided, they'd already come to Jamaica, which is where they were leaving from. For those who were already in Jamaica, they were like, if you want to stay for the week, we will help you make arrangements to stay so that you don't have to change your flights home. But no cruise for you, sadly.
Very curious to see where this goes because a lot of the guests on board are saying that it's a HVAC issue, a refrigeration issue, keeping the food cool. They couldn't accept the food because of that. So we'll see exactly what happens there, if their cooling system's on the fritz or what, because it is an older ship. It's Royal Caribbean's old Legend of the Seas, which came out in 1995 and transferred to Marella in 2017. What happens in Mexico stays in Mexico unless you get caught smoking.
Smoking has to be one of the most controversial topics that comes up regularly among cruisers. Those who don't smoke hate the smell, especially in the casino. Those who do are constantly complaining about the lack of areas in which they can light up. But now those jumping on ships to Mexican ports are being warned about the super strict new laws that are being enforced down there. Mexico has basically banned smoking in pretty much every public space, including like parks and beaches, the places that tourists would likely go. If you violate these new rules, you could be fined around $550, but you could also be detained for up to 36 hours, which would mean missing your ship and having to find your own way home. So cruise lines are sort of starting to go out of their way to make sure that passengers know this. Carnival, for example, when you get off the ship in these ports, has signage making sure do not smoke in public areas. You could be, it will be interesting to see if we hear about people who violate these rules the same way that, you're not supposed to smoke on your balcony, but people do. They hopefully will take this seriously because I don't know about you, but the last thing I kind of want to do is tangle with the Mexican police.
Yeah.
But this is going to impact a lot of the most popular ports, like Cozumel and Costa Maya and Sonata, Cabo San Lucas, Puerto Vallarta, ports like that. So it's worth making sure you know the local laws before you get off the ship.
Also, it should be noted that if you're going to a private beach resort, they still have the jurisdiction over their own rules. So if they say you can smoke on the beach or whatever, you can do that. This is just like in parks and in public areas that are enforced as non-smoking.
Exactly.
And speaking of Mexico, just last week after we recorded, a bit of protesting happened over there.
Whenever cruise lines attempt to expand, you can count on someone being there to protest the idea. In this case, it was the Mexican government that's really keen on the idea of building a fourth pier in Cozumel. More piers, more money, that kind of thing. But protesters say this will be bad for the environment. About 100 of them showed up and protested, and they were from kind of a lot of different sectors. Some were there, some were tourists, some were local business people. This isn't exactly a new issue. This battle's been going on for a couple of years. A judge ruled back in like April of 2020 that for the moment, construction on this pier could not move forward. The pier is designed in such a way that it would actually be able to welcome some of the biggest ships in the world, like the Royal Caribbean ships, to the pier. But one interesting aspect of this story is that among the reasons protesters are trying to prevent the ships from coming is that they don't want the local economy to be too reliant on cruise passengers. Obviously, Cozumel, like every other cruise port, took a huge economic hit during the industry-wide shutdown. So the argument they're making now, as well as environmental, and they don't want the coral that they're trying to develop to be damaged, but one of the arguments they're making that's a little unusual is that should the area become more reliant on cruise-related money and something happen that shuts the industry down again, well, then God forbid, the impact on the environment will be even bigger. So in their minds, it's smart to take a less is more approach. Let's stay with what we've got. Let's not become even more reliant on that cruise money because, those people are not going to spend as much money here as are people who are coming, like, let's say, flying in and staying overnight. Those type of people are going to spend more money. So let's focus our efforts there as opposed to the effort to bring more cruising in.
NCL has added more sailings from the Mid-Atlantic.
Yeah, folks looking to sail out of Baltimore will have more options this year. NCL had already made plans to do some leaf peeper cruises. They were bringing the Norwegian Sky in the fall. Now they're also going to be sending her sister ship, the Norwegian Sun, to Baltimore. It'll do a few sailings in the winter months. Sun will start by doing a 5-day round trip sailing from Baltimore to Bermuda with, the traditional overnight stay at King's Wharf. I just did a similar sailing on the Carnival Magic. And then for those who are looking to do a longer sailing out of Baltimore, she's scheduled to do 3 12-night trips that'll hit, Florida, Bermuda, the Bahamas. Once her time in Baltimore is wrapped, then the Sun will head back to Miami, like all good snowbirds. So, they're investing a little more, and there must be evidence that, there are enough people in that market that make it worth bringing some in there for some of these winter sailings, get people to warmer climates.
Did we ever figure out what's actually going on with Norwegian Sky?
We did not. We still, as far as I know, I wonder if that's part of the big push they had toward, remember a couple of weeks ago, they announced that they were doing a lot of charters. Maybe it was part of that. I never actually looked closer at that to see. We'll have to get an answer on that.
Yeah. And Carnival Cruise Line has sent a letter to guests reminding them to behave.
File this under why, as in why we can't have nice things. Those emails you get before a cruise, most of which, they kind of get you excited about because they're advertising the spa or the casino or they're urging you to buy the drink package. Well, now Carnival Cruise Line has started sending an additional email to people. It's a reminder about, how well-behaved functioning adults should act in public. It covers everything from chair hogs to their policies about what you can bring on board beverage-wise. It also covers one of my personal pet peeves, which is people hanging out in public places, watching TV or listening to music on their phones and not wearing headphones. I hate that. The letter is basically the equivalent of a Miss Manners column, and it reminds people that actions have consequences. One of the paragraphs actually reads, and this is a direct quote, "Any guest whose conduct affects the comfort, enjoyment, safety, or well-being of other guests or crew member will be disembarked at their own expense and banned from sailing Carnival in the future." I mean, it's kind of sad that they feel the need to send this out, but that, my friend, is the world we live in today.
Listener question from Tom. Email your questions, Doug@cruiseradio.net. We're leaving for a cruise on February 18th on the Horizon, and I've heard horror stories about traffic issues getting to and from the port. I understand that shuttles for most parking garages are not that reliable, and we are using an off-site parking garage, so not parking at the port. Any thoughts on this? We're also wondering, should we Uber because we're worried about the reliability of the shuttle service from the parking garage? Any thoughts?
Yeah, 100% Uber. I mean, Uber is always the answer in this kind of situation for a couple of reasons. One, you're right. The shuttle can be unreliable. If you miss the shuttle, you're screwed, whereas you're not going to miss your Uber. Another thing that a lot of people don't think about, they sometimes think about taking a taxi instead of an Uber. Generally speaking, a taxi is not going to have a set rate, whereas the Uber is. You're going to know when that Uber arrives, here's how much it costs. Well, imagine if you do wind up caught in bad traffic, that taxi, the fare is just going to keep ticking up and up and up. Whereas your Uber, exactly. Sorry, Uber driver. I mean, I'll tip you better, but you know that it's a set price. So pretty much anytime there's a question of getting to a pier on time, my two biggest pieces of advice are yes, take an Uber, and also try and get there early. Do not leave it till the last minute. You don't want to find something terrible happens on the highway, and an Apple truck overturns and suddenly you're stuck in 2-hour traffic and you actually miss the ship. They will not wait for you. So get there early and yes, take an Uber.
And the second question is, I see where Carnival has a board a rookie, return a pro cruise giveaway they're doing. The only issue is I have a lot of cruises under my belt. Can I still enter this contest?
That's a really good question, and it was actually the first thing I wondered as well. Because, was there going to be something that said it was only open to first-time cruisers? But I read the rules. I'm very rarely do people actually go and read those pages, but I actually went and read through the rules. And despite it being marketed as for first-time cruisers, there's nothing in there saying you actually have to be a first-time cruiser. There's a couple other things you should probably know as well. The cruise is actually a $1,500 voucher, good toward a balcony stateroom. Can you even get a balcony for $1,500 these days? It covers the cruise fare only, so it does not include like port fees, taxes, things like that. And the other thing to know is that it is not available. It is not a voucher that you can use on the newest ship, so you cannot use it on Celebration, Jubilee, or Mardi Gras. But otherwise, enter to your heart's content and good luck.
And if you do want to enter, it's PepsiRookieCruise.com. It looks like it's going through February 28th. So we have that going on. All right, staff writer Richard Sims, as always, my friend, thank you so much. Talk to you next week.
Glad to be here.
Are you really?
Always.
Do you have a story or a tip to report? Let us know. Email tips@cruiseradio.net.
A big question we get at Cruise Radio is, how do I know if I need trip insurance? Simple answer. If you're getting on a plane, taking a road trip, or getting on a cruise ship, you need to have travel insurance. Hey, it's Doug Parker from my friends at tripinsurance.com. Not only does tripinsurance.com protect your vacation investment, but it also gives you peace of mind in case anything were to go wrong on your trip. How do they do it? They offer 3 different types of trip insurance policies. Good, better, and best. One policy for every vacation budget. But it doesn't just stop there. They're up to 40% lower when you shop around on other comparison sites. Plus, tripinsurance.com offers 24-hour customer support before, during, and after your trip, online claims assistance, and travel alerts to let you know what's going on at your destination. But find out for yourself. Check out tripinsurance.com.
You're listening to Cruise Radio, the trusted voice of the cruise industry.
Kevin and his family did a 6-night Western Caribbean cruise aboard Carnival Horizon out of Port Miami over Thanksgiving. And Kevin joins us on the line. How you doing, Kevin?
Doing great, Doug. How are you?
Good. Haven't talked to you in a while, so good to hear your voice, man. And good to hear a review of Carnival Horizon. It's been since July of 21 since we had one on the show here, so we're going to take a step back. You're in the Pacific Northwest. You had to come over here to Florida. Give us a pre-cruise thoughts about this 6-nighter.
Yeah, we're always looking for good cruise getaway over Thanksgiving, and this one was a very appealing itinerary. And we can leave it on a Sunday, come back on the following Saturday. So since we have long ways to travel, it's kind of nice to bookend it with some travel days on there and not have to take too much vacation time too.
Are you having a nasty winter this year?
Yeah, we are. It's been a lot of snow. Beginning of January, it had a nice melt off for sure. Mm-hmm. But then, I think it was last weekend, there was another batch of snow that came down. So yeah, it's been pretty nasty. Gotcha.
So you make your way from the Pacific Northwest down to Miami. Any pre-cruise time down there?
Yeah, we always, for some reason, no matter if we're cruising out of Miami or Fort Lauderdale, we usually try to gravitate towards Fort Lauderdale. Just a little bit calmer atmosphere in general and easier flights in and out. And we've found a really awesome hotel that gives us great service that's right along the beach. So we just tend to do that.
What hotel do you use?
We use the Conrad Fort Lauderdale.
Okay.
It's a really, really nice hotel. It's all suites.
Mm-hmm.
It can be kind of pricey, so usually I end up using Hilton Honors points to get a pretty good deal off of it. But it's a great location. I mean, especially if you're cruising out of Fort Lauderdale for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's 10 minutes away from the port, but even Miami, I mean, it's 45 minutes, but it's not bad, right? To have a little bit calmer atmosphere, especially with the little guy usually traveling with us.
Yeah, and those Lauderdale beaches are a little more subdued than the South Beach as well.
Yeah, no, especially I think so when it was just my wife and I.
Yeah,
South Beach would be perfectly okay,
right.
No problem at all. But when we're just trying to have a nice little family atmosphere, and be able to enjoy the pool or the beach, when we fly in or fly out, it's great. It's a great spot.
For sure. So, what do y'all like hire a shuttle service, or do you like Uber down to Port Miami from Lauderdale?
When our son was younger, we often actually did like a car service because then that way they could, provide us like a car seat and everything like that. We didn't have to truck it along the entire trip because usually like when kids 2 or younger, they can, or under 2, I guess it really is, they don't need their own seat on an airplane. Mm-hmm. They can just be a lap child. And, that way we'd have to haul the car seat around.
Yeah.
Now that he's over 2, he's required to have a seat on the plane, full-fledged passenger. So, we have to bring his car seat. So this time around, probably going forward, we just do Uber or Lyft. Very convenient, very easy, especially for most of the airports.
Gotcha. So you make your way down to Port Miami. How was embarkation for you?
Embarkation is really, really, really quick, especially since a lot of the, COVID restrictions have pretty much been lifted and, all of us are fully vaccinated and all that fun stuff. We had booked a suite on the ship. Check-in curb to ship was probably 20 minutes at most. We really didn't really stop too much, which was wonderful.
Wow. That's not bad for Port Miami on a Carnival cruise.
No, definitely not. I mean, because I think they just started boarding when we walked into the terminal. So it worked out really well with that. The only thing that was a little confusing when we did come into Port Miami is that day, and Doug, I think you might have actually been in Port Miami too that day. It was pouring down buckets left and right. I think that was the day that the celebration came in on its inaugural sailing, and it was just raining left and right. And so there was no porters at all on the curb, which was crazy to be able to hand off our luggage. So we actually ended up, for the first time ever, literally hauling our luggage all the way through to our stateroom. So we were thankful that we were able to get on board really, really quickly and not have too much waiting around because, traveling with a little guy and all the stuff that he has and our bags, it was a lot to haul around. And yeah, it was quite chaotic at the terminal, but we were thankful to be able to get through really, really quickly.
And you know what, man, I've been to Miami a lot, and that's like the worst torrential downpour that I've ever seen there because it started when on a celebration, we pulled in at 2:00 that morning and it started and it went for like 2 days straight.
Yeah, it never, I think it even delayed our sailing a bit. I mean, it seemed like it delayed everyone's sailing when we were headed out. So I guess I'm assuming there are coastal warnings or whatever that they just had to slow down traffic or whatever, but I've been through a lot of downpours originally from Southeast Texas, but this one was definitely one for the record books.
Yeah, it was full throttle for sure. So you make your way on board the ship. I know you've done this one before, but what were your first impressions this time around?
The Horizon's a really great ship. It's definitely not the Celebration or the Mardi Gras, which has a lot more, new smell and all that fun stuff, a lot more activities. However, it's a really, really nice ship and very well laid out. We sailed it back in, I think it was March of 2019. So it's, been quite a few years, but it looked pretty much same as back then and very well kept up.
Nice. So what kind of stateroom did you book for this 6-night cruise?
So we had a grand suite that was kind of, I think it was on deck 8 deck 8, kind of more forward, slightly bigger room, but it was a great size especially for three people in the room and giving space for our toddler to kind of be able to move around the room and so forth. it was a really, really nice room.
So my question is, Kevin, what makes it grand except the extra square footage? Is that pretty much about it?
That's really about it, except the thing that I didn't realize is that it gave us access to the Havana area, the Havana experience on the ship. I didn't realize that, which was fine. That's obviously a nice perk, right? As far as that's concerned. But, I think it's only on the Vista class ships and above that they do give that option or give that ability for the grand suites, where you have access to your own, I would say, semi-private pool, obviously you and a few other guests, but you're not with the mass general population if you wanted to. And nice little, quiet area on deck 5 in the back. But yeah, just a little bit extra square footage. I think I think most suites on Carnival are about 275 square foot. I think this one is like 325.
Nice.
So
Okay.
just slightly bigger, but obviously the space is definitely welcomed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially with traveling with a toddler. Very cool there. So let's talk about the dining on board this 6-night cruise. We'll start at the top there at the Lido Deck Marketplace. How was your experience there throughout the week?
It was good. They definitely moved the food around pretty good. I mean, as far as there's always fresh food, good food. It's very well spread out, as far as that's concerned with, different stations kind of throughout that whole deck 10 area. We always enjoy going in there to grab a quick bite to eat, or, sometimes we grab a burger for ourselves and then grab other stuff for, more kid-friendly food that was inside. It was really nice. We always had good experiences there at the Lido Marketplace.
And then how about for the main dining room? What time dining did you have, and how was your experience there?
We had early dining, and it was really good. We were seated in I don't remember which, because there's two main dining rooms on the Horizon. We were in the one that was kind of in the middle of the ship, as far as that's concerned. So it's a single level, just kind of in the middle area. And it was good. The service was top notch. I mean, they would serve us really, really quickly, especially, they knew that the little guy usually needed food fairly quickly. Otherwise havoc would ensue. And so usually they brought out his food really quickly and then paced the rest of us. And, they had the typical Carnival experience with, singing and dancing every night and, the Showtime stuff and everything. But no, we had a really great service.
Cool. Now, outside of the main dining room in the buffet area, anything like they do have like a Guy Fieri, they have a brewery on there, right?
They do.
Yeah. So anything like any barbecue or Guy's Burger or anything like that?
Yeah. So my wife knows that if we're on a ship that has especially Guy's Barbecue, that's where we always go on the first day, on embarkation day. So it's usually not that busy, and you can get really good service and everything. And that's what we did on embarkation day. We went to Guy's Barbecue. Also, with the other complimentary stuff, I mean, we did go to Guy's Burger several times, the pizza place, Blue Iguana, and the deli too, which is technically part of the buffet, but is called out separately within the Carnival food offerings. We also tried the pasta bar one time, which is, it's in the Cucina area, but during the day they have it as a pasta bar, and it's complimentary. And so basically when you walk in, they give you like a little sheet of paper with all the different choices that you can have, like in the type of pasta, what you want in your pasta, side items, things like that. And you fill it out. I think it's the same way that they do the Mongolian walk as well, which is across the way in Gigi's on the Horizon. So it's not within the buffet, but we did the pasta bar, and it was really good.
Did you eat at the Mongolian walk at all on your sailing?
We did not do it this time.
Gotcha.
We usually do, but we just kind of ran out of days.
Right, I hear you. Well, let's talk about the entertainment on this 6-night cruise. What did you think of it?
Definitely had some good entertainment. The downfall about sailing a lot, especially on Carnival ships, is you often see a lot of the same shows flow through, and so unfortunately that was the case for us. But the entertainment we did see was really good and up to the Carnival expectations. They also had a couple of good comedians flow through during the week, and the comedy is definitely something that Carnival is known for. And I think does better than some of the other cruise lines.
For the comedians, were they doing any of the shows in the main theater, or was it in the small area?
It was a mixture. They were mostly in the main area, if I recall, just because of the space requirements and so forth. That's one downfall about Carnival's comedy shows, is that they do tend to put them in those smaller theaters. And if you're not in line 30 minutes before the show, there's a good chance you're not getting in. And, luckily, if it was in the Liquid Lounge is the bigger one. And so if it was in Liquid Lounge, you were good to go. You knew you were going to be able to get a seat. But if it was in the limelight, you were in trouble.
Yeah.
You need to be there 30 minutes before.
Yeah. Did y'all do like the sky ride or anything up there?
We did not this time. We have done it in the past on our previous sailing, and it's definitely good fun. But no, this time we didn't get to do it.
Gotcha. All right. Well, how about the sea days as far as crowds and congestion?
They had the congestion wasn't too bad. There's definitely the typical choke points, especially kind of right on the main pool deck 10, right by Guy's Burger or Blue Iguana. But besides that, there was definitely a lot of space to kind of spread out. It's one nice thing about this ship and its layout is it really has three main outdoor decks, deck 10, 11, and 12, and so plenty of space all throughout the ship, not just at the main pool, but even kind of along the sides, front and back. So there was plenty of space to enjoy the sun if you wanted to.
Nice. This was a Thanksgiving day, or I guess a Thanksgiving week sailing, I guess you went on here. Did you notice a lot of kids on board because of it being Thanksgiving week?
Yeah, there were a lot of kids, a lot of families, a lot of kids. I don't know what the ratio was, but we got a sailing at the end of September on Carnival, and that's not a very typical family time to go, right? Because school's in session, so there weren't very many kids. But this one, there were quite a few.
How old is your son now? 3?
He's 2.5 now.
2.5. So, what is a 2.5-year-old? Is he liking the kids club, or is it kind of you just using them as a babysitting service, or what are the thoughts there?
We use it as a kind of like a babysitting service. He doesn't quite understand the concept at this point, but we've definitely enjoyed it on other ships. This time around, the staffing and I guess they were probably, the last question you talked about the number of kids, they were very overwhelmed with the quantity. And so he really didn't like it. And we as a family didn't really enjoy that experience at all. And actually had some general issues with it, but every parent's different on how that works out. And, it's definitely a great offering that all the cruise lines typically have. Carnival starts it at 2 years old, which is, a complimentary at 2 years old, which is nice. Where I think Royal Caribbean, I think you have to be 3 before it's complimentary. Younger, it's younger on World. They have a charge, and Carnival is kind of hit or miss, I think, if they had anything under 2. But it's a great offering if it works out.
As you're walking through the ship, like on the sea days, you're going to dinner and everything. How was the smoke situation in and around the casino?
It wasn't too bad. So with the layout of the Horizon on deck 4, I think is where the casino was. You really pretty much had to walk through the casino if you wanted to get to or from on that deck. So that one was a little bit tricky. So the smoke was at times pretty intense. And then also on deck 11 in the main pool area, I think it is, there's a typical smoking section too for the outdoor area. And so it could get pretty intense there, where we would actually kind of alter our path when we were walking around outside to stay away from the smoke, because it would be pretty, pretty intense.
Did you by chance notice if they made the conference room on Horizon a non-smoking casino? Because I know on Magic they did.
I did not notice that.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm just curious. All right, well, let's talk about your ports of call on this 6-night cruise. You said you went to Ocho Rios, Grand Cayman, and Cozumel, right?
That is correct.
Awesome. So let's just hit those in order then and talk about the time in Ocho Rios. What'd you do there? And we'll move to Grand Cayman.
Yeah, so Ocho Rios, we did a excursion called the Bamboo Beach Club. So basically they just picked you up and, right there at the port, transported you to their beach club, and was really nice. They had basically, your small group of people. They had a couple waitresses or waiters that would come around and make sure you had a couple of drinks. They didn't have any, like, you couldn't really choose too much for what was included, but they had a couple items that you could choose from, alcoholic and non-alcoholic. They also had, little small, what I consider tastings as far as food. It said officially they included lunch, but I'll say we definitely went back and I think grabbed a hamburger or a pizza after it. So just little tastings of food, but the beach itself was really, really nice. Included a beach chair and where you could have some shade with some trees and so forth. So we definitely enjoyed it.
Have they cleaned the port area up at Ocho Rios? And when I was there a couple of years ago, I was actually right when that restart happened. A lot of drugs being offered around there.
Yeah, there definitely seemed to be that atmosphere for sure. We weren't actually offered any, but it sounded like there was some offerings going around for sure.
And then what'd you do in Grand Cayman?
So Grand Cayman, we did the Turtle Farm and Wildlife Adventure, I think is what they called it. And so on Grand Cayman, they have the Turtle Sanctuary. I've been to that a real long time ago. I was probably 20 years ago, maybe. So it's definitely changed. They basically kind of take you on a little guided tour around their facility and show you, all the different sizes of turtles, of sea turtles, both from, little babies all the way up to the ones that are at retirement age and so forth. So that was really cool, and they have a little area that you can go see some birds and other things around too that you can kind of walk around. And then they also have a nice little swim area too. So that's where we kind of took advantage of, where basically a big pool, what comes down to it. But, a lot of people were, slides and stuff. So you could really enjoy some water time as well.
Is this the turtle sanctuary that actually raises the turtles for some of it, like for slaughter, because it's a delicacy in some parts of the world, and then the turtle eggs and everything?
I don't think they slaughter them or raise them for food. I believe a lot of it's to eventually release out into the ocean, I think is what I gathered. They didn't mention anything about the slaughtering process or anything like that, but doesn't mean that's what doesn't go down too, right? But they had pretty large operations with even like a little hatchery and all that fun stuff. Fortunately, it wasn't hatching season, I guess. We just missed it by a month or so, but so we could look at the area, where that would go down. But it was nice.
I'm having flashbacks, PTSD here, of when I was 18 years old on Carnival Destiny. My girlfriend at the time and our parents, we all took this cruise. We went to the turtle farm, and it's like a big round pool that you put your hand in and touch the turtles. And I remember the guy telling our group, enjoy them now because they're going to be on a plate later. And I was like, wait, what? I was like, I couldn't tell if he was kidding or not. So that's why I had to ask. So
yeah, no, there was no mention of that. But like I said, that doesn't mean that's not what their fate was. But I guess maybe they decided that wasn't very PR, I guess you would say. Right? So.
Yeah. The next port of call was Cozumel. What did y'all do there?
So we did a trip over to, Passion Island, I think is what it's called. Mm-hmm. So they take basically get off the ship, and there's a couple of ways you can actually get there. We just did what they call the Power Catamaran. And there's also another option that we've done in the past called Twister, which is more of a wild ride where you're kind of speedboat and they do some tricks and stuff and get you pre-wet for the beach, I guess you could say. But this time we just did the Power Catamaran since we were with the little guy, and it was good. It was nice. Unfortunately, it was a long boat ride over. It's about 30 to 45 minutes over to the island. But once you get over there, it's all inclusive as far as that's concerned. So they have a nice, Mexican buffet that you can enjoy. They have, drinks as well, alcoholic and non-alcoholic, and you get, beach chair and all that fun stuff. And we had a real good time. We just didn't quite know the adventure that we were going to have on the way back. So after our time there, you could tell it was getting a little dark and gloomy out there. And I feel like that rain that we experienced in Miami caught up to us, even though I'm sure this was a completely different storm. And so it was pouring down cats and dogs on our way back. And then about a quarter of the way back to, Cozumel, our boat veered off to the left, I think it was. and we ran across. Basically, the captain noticed a distressed boat that was in the water. Looked like it was about three locals that were trying to maybe go out fishing, not really sure. And so that there was one guy that was trying to shovel as much water as he could out of his boat, but it wasn't going to work out for them. And so they ended up tying that boat to the back end of our boat. Then we basically had to kind of go at really slow speeds back to Cozumel, towing them. By the time when we got to basically the first area, which I think is kind of right by where the Norwegian ships dock, there was police and an ambulance there waiting for them. And so we dropped them off there, and then they let us know that they let Carnival know that we were running late, because this excursion was supposed to end about 5:00, and I think it was already 5:15 when we dropped them off, maybe even 5:30, and the ship was supposed to sail about 5:45, 6:00. And so they had to let Carnival know that we were running late, and they got us back to the dock right there by where the Carnival ships dock in Cozumel. And basically it was like run, to go straight, no shopping, no nothing, go straight to the ship. And, we did. And that was one of the first times I ever, right when we got onto the ship and got through security, that we know that they were closing down the gangway, so they were pulling the gangway and shutting the door right behind us. So
wow,
they were definitely waiting for us, but, it was not, especially because it was a Carnival excursion. So you knew that they were most likely going to wait anyways, but they reassured us on the little boat coming back from Passion Island that they already were, informed and everything. But it's also cool. Besides, stressing about making it back to the ship, it was really cool to be part of, I guess you could say, a rescue in a way. These three locals that were, stranded in the middle of that strait there, between Cozumel and Passion Island. So.
Interesting experience coming back, and another good reason to have that cruise line excursion if you're going to go far away from the boat.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's one thing, right? In Cozumel, if you stick to the mainland Cozumel, you're just a taxi right away.
Yeah.
But if you're going off to mainland Mexico, like Playa del Carmen or anything that doesn't require, or anything that's more than just a taxi, you really need to either have that cruise line excursion or make sure it's well padded as far as that's concerned. I think I've heard some people say, if you're doing it on your own, try and be back, plan to be back 2 to 3 hours before departure, if you can, just in case something goes wrong. And this one was definitely cutting it close, but yeah, like I said, we were on a Carnival excursion, so. Well, at least we knew we were kind of protected.
Yeah. Well, while we're talking about the Western Caribbean here, I just pulled up the uncommoncaribbean.com, and it says, the turtle farm certainly skirts a fine line between putting on a good show for tourists and feeding the island's appetite for turtle meat, a culinary tradition that dates back centuries in the Cayman Islands. It's a delicate balancing act, but one that's probably best for all parties concerned. Yes, even the turtles. So I guess they do...
Sounds like they do, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So that's
definitely wasn't mentioned, but
yeah, I knew I wasn't going crazy. Okay, very good. So you make your way back to Port Miami there. How was debark?
Debark was slow. So it was, I guess, because of all the folks and everything. It took a while to get to the point of getting off the ship. But once you got off the ship, things really, really sailed from there. No pun intended, obviously. The lines were super quick. They were using the facial recognition to get through customs, and everything. But probably after we were stepping off the ship to when we were waiting for our lift ride, again, it was probably 20, 25 minutes at most. I mean, the longest line in particular was probably after you got your luggage and waiting to get out of the terminal. That was about it.
Gotcha. Okay. Well,
so not too bad.
Yeah, no. Any first-time tips to offer someone sailing? Actually, you know what? Before we even get to that, how was the Thanksgiving feast on board?
It was really good. So they offer on Carnival. They offer mix of different things. Obviously it's usually a formal night, and then also they had the traditional turkey. They usually had some sort of seafood option, and they even had some Cajun options too. And so the turkey option was really great. we were last on Carnival for Thanksgiving. Actually, I think it's on the Vista before the pandemic, and I wasn't too impressed with it. But this time around, it was really, really good. So would highly recommend it.
Any first-time tips to offer someone sailing Carnival Horizon?
It's a really great ship. So they definitely keep good care of it, even though it's not that super old, obviously. Doesn't have the latest and greatest, instead of like Mardi Gras or Celebration. It really has a lot of good things to offer for all ages, whether down to the kids or all the way up to the adults. You're definitely in for a good time.
Very cool. Looking back, what was the biggest highlight of this cruise for y'all?
Just the family time. I think I tell you that most every time, for the most part, but we really love cruising and we really enjoy the what it brings to our family. And, whenever we have one booked and we're looking forward to it, we can't wait for that day to come. And, we don't get the internet packages or any of that stuff. We truly just disconnect from society in a way and, spend time, with as the three of us and get to experience the different tropical islands that you can. And we had a great time. Final thoughts of Carnival Horizon. Great ship, great opportunity for good fun, and highly recommend that itinerary to anyone that's looking at it. We've been talking with Kevin about his 6-night sailing over Thanksgiving on board Carnival Horizon out of Port Miami. Kevin, great talking to you again, my friend, and thank you so much for sharing this review. Of course, Doug. Have a good one.
All right, Dougie, let's see what we got for you, buddy. Cruise Radio is produced at the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Get cruise news, ship reviews, and money-saving tips every Thursday on Cruise Radio. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. If you want to help spread the word, give Cruise Radio a 5-star review. Find Cruise Radio where you listen to your favorite podcast or online at cruiseradio.net. I'm your announcer,